Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to do a little bit of a special review once again. This is going to be the second of my two Easter beer reviews here on the channel for Easter of 2021. So for this review, we are also going to stick to Sweden, and we are also going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing Gothenburg beers because it is just channel tradition these days. And for this review, we are going to return to a brewery that you've seen me review many beers from before, but I believe this is a style that I've not tried from them yet, so curious to see how it turns out. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, so fingers crossed it's going to be another good one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to return to Beerbliotek once again. We're going to have a look at the Welcome to the Easter Bunny Mansion, which is number 245 according to their number system. It comes in at 5.8% ABV, and they're describing it as a dark amber ale. So yeah, quite curious to see how this one turns out. The thing that I really love about this brewery is that they're not scared to do different styles. They do a lot of different stuff, and you know, they're always pretty damn consistent as well. Actually, they're usually really consistent with all these different styles. You always get a good quality beer from Beerbliotek, and it's been a long time since I've had an amber ale. It's my first amber ale that I've had from these guys, so I'm very curious to see what this one has in store for us. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this beer then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Beerbliotek before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Beerbliotek then, on to my brewery notes. So, Beerbliotek, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2013 by a multinational group of friends. This is Adam Norman, who's from Australia, Richard Bull, who's a Kiwi, New Zealand, Anders Hedlund, who is Swedish, and then Darl de Necker, who's from South Africa. And I have spoken to him a few times through Messenger and things like that. Seems like a very nice guy. But Adam and Richard ran Bar Doppio in Gothenburg, and then Darl and Anders were regular customers at the bar, and they often just used to sit there and chat away about beer. And then one day they decided that they were going to buy a brew kit together and start brewing their own, and it went very well for them. But the original brewery is in the old Klippan Sugar building, which is a very nice old building, actually located very close to the old Carnegie Brewery in Gothenburg, which is quite a well-known beer brand here in Sweden. But their brew kit in there was from Brewfab in Scotland. I believe that has now gone to Stockholm Brewing Company, over in the capital city, of course, but the original brew kit was from Brewfab in Scotland, and in the first year they brewed 38 different varieties of beer, and you know, this is what they've kind of done. So all of their beers initially were brewed in very small batches, and so it was allowing them to stick to their home brewing roots, and they very rarely brew the same beer. Actually, there are certain ones that are very popular that always kind of come back every so often, so yeah, they don't quite have a fixed range as such, but you will see beers coming back every so often. But a little bit later on, in 2015, they opened a second brewery in Kungsten, which is where they now have their main tap room and run their main brewing operations. The old brewery is used for producing sour beers, and they're also working on their barrel aging project in the new brewery as well. There has been one beer from the barrel aging project released through Systembolaget, but I hope that we get more from them at some point in the future, because the one that I had, it was called Would I Lie to You, and it was beautifully done actually. I would love to get a few more of the barrel aged beers from Beerbliotek at some point, so fingers crossed that is something that we see over the course of 2021. But the only other thing to explain about this brewery would be the name. So the idea behind the name Beerbliotek is that they want to brew a wide variety of beers so that customers can, you know, always learn something about a new malt variety, a new hop variety, a new style, something like this. But it's the concept of a library, but for beer basically. So the word in Swedish for library is bibliotek. So yeah, but I mean, I think it's derived actually from Latin. I'm sure it says on the website that they derived it from Latin. So yeah, so basically it's Beerbliotek, a beer library in essence. But yeah, as of April 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 275 different kinds of beer, and I think they've actually just released a number 300. So yeah, it kind of shows you some of the beers do get thrown away because they're just not of the quality that they want, and I think probably some of those numbers are in in the barrel aging program as well. So I think there's maybe only been a few batches where they've actually had to throw it away, but they've got a very good rate of return, should we say. But yeah, number 300 has just been released on the day that I'm filming this review actually, so I'm going to go and buy a can of that and review it for you later on the channel too. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Beerbliotek for the moment. One of my favourite Swedish breweries, of course, because they do so many different styles. But you know, I've had some great IPAs from these guys. Some of the black IPAs are very nice. I've not had too many imperial stouts from them, actually, come to think of it. But yeah, they do some really good stuff, and this is a brew that I would always recommend to people that are interested in Swedish craft beer. So yeah, that's it for your history section. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and have a little look at this beer itself then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork before we open it up. As you can see, very nicely presented, as you'll always get from Beerbliotek. They've changed their artwork recently. This used to be black and white, if I remember rightly, so they've colorized that, which is quite nice on the front of the cans. The other thing I like about Beerbliotek is that they always put Swedish made on this thing. I like that they put the flag on these. I wish more breweries in different countries would do that. But yeah, welcome to the Easter Bunny Mansion, number 245. It says on the side here, a dark amber ale. Not only beers are hoppy, even rabbits are hoppy. So yeah, 5.8%er, 330ml can. I think I paid roughly about 30 Swedish kronas for this, so €3. Yeah, about £2.50, maybe about $3.75 or something like that American, just for those of you watching in different parts of the world. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Curious to try my first amber ale from Beerbliotek. So yeah, let's go for it. It's a dark amber ale at that as well. Let's see. So I should also add that this beer was released through Systembolaget sometime in the middle of March, if I remember correctly, in time for Easter. I can't remember the exact date that this beer was released, but yeah, it was released sometime in the middle of March as part of the Påsk sortiment, the Easter sortiment. Let me just check that that's in a good position and my OCD is happy, and I think it is. So yeah, there we go. So as you can see with this beer, we'll look at the head before it disappears in case it does. It's about a half finger of a frothy, I would say creamy or sort of fawny colour. I'll just let you have a little look at that in the camera. But if we shine the light through this beer, it's got a lovely kind of coppery colour to it actually. It's got a lovely sort of dark kind of coppery colour to it actually. It looks very, very nice, sort of very rich dark amber colour, but I would describe it as coppery in honesty. But yeah, there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. The beer does have a little bit of that whole kind of natural haze sort of thing going on, which I can appreciate. So yeah, I certainly like how that goes together in this one, so thumbs up. In terms of appearance, it looks absolutely lovely. But yeah, quite clear this one, just a little bit of natural haze. Remember, when it comes to different beers, your colour of your beer is dependent on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. Two, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker beer. But yeah, I think an amber ale like this is probably going to undergo a boil of 70 to 90 minutes, which is fairly standard, of course. But yeah, nothing else to really say about the appearance of this one. It looks kind of as you would expect for an amber ale. Although, yeah, for a dark amber ale, yeah, I thought it might have been a little bit dark. I thought it might have even been like a more kind of mahogany type colour, but it certainly looks very nice. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma of this one and just see how we get on then. Very curious about this beer. That does actually have a fair wee hoppy kick to it, which is nice. So for me, I'm a bit unclear as to exactly what an amber ale is in honesty, because I mean, you've got the American red IPAs, the American amber ales and stuff like this, American red ales. I think it is basically just a more kind of malty, IPA, in honesty, a lot of the time. I think a lot of these American red ales and American ambers are just like IPAs, but with a bigger malty presence. Correct me on that in the comment section below if you're a brewer and know a technical definition, because that is something that I'm a little bit kind of unclear about, I would say. But yeah, it smells quite nice, this one. It's kind of what you'd expect. So it's got a good malty presence to it, but it's also got a good kind of slightly spicy hoppy character to it. So very nice. So let's try and break down that aroma for you and describe it a little bit more. So underneath, you can definitely smell a nice little bit of a kind of brown bready character to this one. It's got a bit of a bread crusty element, but there is a good little bit of a kind of brown sugary note in this as well. It's got like quite a highly caramelised brown sugar to it. There's maybe a little bit of biscuit in there, like a McVitie's digestive sort of thing. So there is a wee bit of that going on, definitely. So I can certainly appreciate that in this one. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of, it has the brown sugar in this one actually comes across as being really quite caramelised. There's a good little bit of a kind of sort of grainy element to this beer as well. You can smell a brown bread and almost a little bit of a kind of slightly toasty bread crust in there. I think that's definitely fair to say about this one. A sort of highly caramelised brown sugar sitting on top of that, a bit of a kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing as well. But yeah, it's interesting. That malt base is interesting. One or two little woody elements coming out of it as well. But what I would say about the malt base is that it's almost just kind of, it's actually kind of suppressed a little bit by the hoppy character in the beer, which is quite interesting, because the green component of the hops in this beer actually are quite pungent almost. I would go that far with this. So yeah, I think we should at this point focus on the hoppy side of things then. I wish I knew what hops were actually used in this one, but I'm guessing it might be, you know, a bit of Chinook and a bit of Columbus and something else. But yeah, the aroma, that is quite interesting. So there's definitely a wee bit of earthiness in this one. There's a big green component to this beer, a good little bit. There's a good little bit of a kind of floral aromatic component in there, a big floral aromaticity, a nice little bit of a kind of spiciness to it as well, and yeah, a little bit of a kind of deeper piney resin sitting underneath as well. So there's quite a few things going on in the green component there. Earthiness, good little bit of floral aromaticity, bit of spiciness, and a wee bit of a deeper pine as well. So interesting. I want to say there's maybe a bit of Columbus and a bit of Chinook in this beer, actually. But yeah, there's just some grassiness to it as well. So a nice little bit of a zesty, kind of grassy kind of thing, which I can really appreciate. Then you've got a nice bit of an oily, fruity element to this one as well. So many things going on in this one. I feel I'm saying as well a lot in this video, so we'll try and avoid that. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is quite nice. Let's try and pick out what a few of those different fruits are. We've covered the green component, I think, as much as we need to. But yeah, fruity wise, it's a bit difficult. I mean, this is a style I've not had in quite a wee while, so I'm just trying to figure out what this is. So for me, it's got a bit of a kind of red fruity component to it, which is interesting. I'm getting, you know, I want to say there is a wee touch of a kind of orangey note to it. There's definitely a little bit of a kind of lemony note. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wee bit of Centennial in this, just going from the aroma, because you do get a wee bit of a lemony, kind of zesty note to it, but it comes out a bit differently because of the brown sugary elements in the malt base. So that's interesting. So for me, there is a wee bit of a lemony zesty note to it. I get a wee bit of a kind of marmaladey orangey sort of thing. But there's also a kind of sort of sultana type thing coming out of this beer too, as well as there's a wee bit of red fruit. This is a really interesting one in terms of the fruity side of things. I've not come across a beer that smells quite like this in a long time. But it smells really nice. There's something about this beer that is just, that I find that for me is really quite attractive actually. I always enjoyed a slightly more malty IPA. So that's, you know, I used to love imperial red beers. So I've not had too many beers that have been specifically termed amber ales, but yeah, it would be cool to see a few more of them out there. But I've got a feeling this is going to be a good one. But yeah, bit of a lemony zest, a bit of a kind of oily orangey character for me, a bit of a sort of marmalade thing going on. Some sultanas for sure, and then there's a wee bit of a kind of sweet, kind of tropically note to this one as well. There's a kind of slightly tropically mango-y jam type note in there as well. So yeah, could it be a little bit of a Citra, Amarillo, and a wee bit of like Centennial or something like that in this one? I'd be curious to know what the hop profile of this beer is actually, because I really like the way that the fruitiness comes out in this beer. It's got a lovely oiliness to it, and it's got a nice kind of just citrusy edge, and a wee bit of dried fruit as well. So yeah, this one's made me think a little bit, guys. So yeah, let's just have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. As I always say though, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma, but I think it's time to try this one now. So just to get the name of the beer back up again. So welcome to the Easter Bunny Mansion. You always have to do this with Beerbliotek beers. They love giving their beers like really long names. But yeah, this one is called Welcome to the Easter Bunny Mansion, number 245 according to their numbering system, from Beerbliotek up in Gothenburg on the Swedish west coast, their Easter release. Slange, skål, cheers, glad påsk. Yeah, that's a decent enough kind of drinkable beer, this one, yeah. I'm going to say straight away though, this is definitely not the most exciting of beers that you're going to get from Beerbliotek. We'll say that straight away. And in honesty, this is one of the reasons why I don't really review many Easter beers on the channel. I think, you know, the winter releases. I think, you know, winter releases are often a lot more exciting than the Christmas releases are often a lot more exciting than the Easter releases, in honesty, and that goes the world over. You're getting things like Schlenkerla, Eiche, Doppelbock, and things like that. You're getting all of this kind of stuff in the winter releases, but then the påsk beers, you're getting like English bitters and amber ales, stuff like that. So yeah, for me there's a big difference between those. But this is a decent enough drinkable beer, this one, but as I say, most definitely not the most exciting one that you're going to come across from Beerbliotek. Yeah. But in terms of what you would expect from an amber ale, it is quite nicely done. So I think, you know, there was just two beers in the Easter release that interested me, and it was the Spike Eastern Twang, the ESB, because I thought Spike doing an ESB, and then this one, the Beerbliotek Amber Ale, because yeah, I've not had an amber ale from them, and I do quite like an amber ale. This one's quite well done, but you know, the amber ale, I think generally speaking as well, we have to say about this, it's not the kind of craziest style, if you like. I prefer an Imperial Red to an amber ale, or a red ale to an amber ale, I would say. But anyway, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then and see how we go. The first thing that you're going to be struck with this beer is just how kind of slick and smooth it is. It is a very slick, smooth, easy drinking beer. We'll say that about it. I think it would be really nice on tap, actually. I'd be curious to see whether the malty side of things came out on the tap a little bit more. But yeah, straight away with this beer you can feel a nice, very smooth kind of brown bready malt base to this one. It's got a little bit of a kind of wholemeal touch to it, and you'll get elements of bread crust in there. It does dry out a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste, but yeah, I certainly like how that goes about its business, definitely. But yeah, the malty base of this beer is really nice. Smooth breadiness, lovely bit of bread crusty quality. The breadiness in this beer is, you know, ridiculously smooth. But what you'll find with this beer is that it does a few more of the kind of grainy elements from the wholemeal bread push their way out a little bit more the further into the aftertaste you go. You get a little bit of a sort of sweet, you get a little bit of a more kind of sweet caramelly note coming out of the beer in the middle of the palate. Some of the boozier notes at 5.8% though. It's at 5.8% though, it does have a nice little bit of sweetness in there. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of concentrated brown sugary sort of thing in the very centre of your palate. And as you move further out from that, it gets a wee bit more kind of grainy and biscuity, if you like. So yeah. So yeah, I think the malt base does sweeten up a little bit the more that you drink of it as well. I do get a little tiny hint. If you go to the front corners of your palate and move down the back, I get a little tiny hint of a very slight woodiness out of this one, which is quite nice. So there is a wee bit of that going on, definitely. But yeah, the fruity side of this, the kind of fruity edge in this beer is quite nice, I have to say. So yeah, I certainly like how that side of things goes together. Definitely, there's just a wee touch of a woody complexity in this beer. But yeah, on the back third of your palate there, it's there's a bit more graininess to it, but in the middle third of your palate it's quite straightforward, smooth, brown bready base to it, a little bit of bread crust, then just a wee bit of a kind of bit of a woody element mixed into that, then sweet brown sugar in the centre of the palate, a little bit more biscuity behind that, and yeah, I think that works quite nicely. But yeah, on that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel that it sort of thickens up a wee bit, which I quite like. So you get a wee bit more of a breadiness in there, and you do get a little bit of a grainy bread crust. And then on that back third of your palate, you can feel a few more of the kind of grainy underlinings there, and you can feel on top of that the sort of slightly more airy, yeasty parts of the flavour, just kind of coming up like this a little bit. So yeah, you can feel it's a little bit of a taller flavour. It's a little bit of a kind of taller flavour on the back third of your palate, and you can feel that it gradually sort of condenses down as you move further forward from the back of your palate. Then when you reach that border region, it kind of condenses quite quickly, and then the middle third of your palate does reach a nice, it does feel a little bit more kind of dense, if you like. So yeah, I can certainly appreciate that about this beer for sure. So yeah, the malty side of this one is fairly nicely done. It is quite nicely done. But yeah, I don't think there's really any more we can kind of say about it, in fairness. So on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate, there's definitely a little touch of earthiness coming out of the beer. And as you move further forward, it quite quickly makes the transition to having a little bit of a nice, to having a bit of a deeper piney resin to it. And as you move further forward with that, it develops a bit of a kind of floral aromatic spice, and then on the front corners of the palate, it is really quite spicy, in fact. And then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy in a sense. There is a wee bit of a kind of grassy zestiness to this one as well, which I can certainly appreciate. So yeah, it works nicely for sure. So yeah, the green component of this one has a nice kind of depth to it actually. It's not overly bitey or anything like that, but I think it's got a nice depth to it, and it just works well with the malty side of things. So and it helps bring out some of the slightly grainy features of this beer as well, the further you go into the aftertaste. So yeah, interesting for sure. But let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then, because I think this is the most interesting part of the beer, definitely. So yeah, on that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you can feel a little bit more of a slightly thicker, doughy, grainy, bready sort of thing, bit of a toasty bread crust element to it as well. Then the base of that front third of your palate is a very smooth sort of brown bready note again, and on top of that you've got that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So towards the back of that front third of your palate, you do have a very nice you've got a little bit of a more kind of concentrated citrus out of this one. There is a wee touch of that grapefruity element there. So I think Chinook is one of the hops in this. I'm pretty sure that Chinook has been used in this one. Just the way that the beer has a bit of that deeper piney note and a wee bit of a grapefruit. Yeah, I think Chinook. I'm pretty certain about that. But as you move further forward from that, the beer mellows out quite nicely. So yeah, it's got a very nice... it has a really, as you move further forward from that, it kind of mellows out. You get a wee bit more of a kind of tropically note from it, maybe a little bit of mango or something. But the grapefruity note does have quite a bit of pungency, in fairness. But as you move further forward onto the front half of the front third of your tongue, there's maybe a wee touch of orange there, but I'm thinking that I might have been mistaken about there being Amarillo or even an orangey hop in this one. It doesn't really have that, but I think there might be Centennial in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if this was Chinook, maybe a bit of Columbus as a bittering hop as well, and then Centennial. I wouldn't be surprised about that. So yeah. Yeah. In fairness, it maybe does have a wee bit of an orangey note to it, but it's not, if there is, it's not madly prominent actually. I think maybe you get a wee bit of an orangey kind of marmalade-y sort of thing out of it. and then a wee bit of a more centennial lemony kind of zest on the front kind of tip of the tongue, if you like. So yeah, there's a few interesting things going on in this beer for sure. Actually, is the fruity side of the beer is quite nice and oily, and it kind of gives you what you would want. But yeah, it's a nice enough pardon me, it's a nice enough amber ale, this. But as I say, the amber ales are not the most exciting style of beer. They're quite nice to have every so often. And it's definitely not the kind of craziest beer you're going to find from Beerbliotek. I think that's safe to say. But yeah, I think that kind of summarises the flavour of this one quite nicely, to be honest with you. In terms of the mouthfeel, then I would say that this is a kind of mid-bodied beer, maybe pushing the top bodied of mid-bodied actually. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a really slick, oily sort of mouthfeel to it. In terms of bitterness, it's not madly bitter, but there's a wee bit of bitterness to it, maybe 40, 50 IBUs, something like that. Remember, this is my weakest point when it comes to beer reviewing though, so take that with a pinch of salt. But yeah, it is kind of interesting in that sense. So maybe about 40, 50 IBUs. The malt base, as I said, is very smooth. There's a degree of sweetness to it as well, but it gets a bit more grainy the further you go into the aftertaste. And there's a sort of oily, slicker, kind of fruity character to this beer. So yeah, this is an interesting one. I might, in honesty, I might have expected a little bit better from Beerbliotek in this, but as I say, it's not the most exciting style in a sense. The amber ales are not the most exciting style, but I got it because, if they're done really well, they can be nice. And this is a well done beer, this one. It leans a little bit more towards the grainy side of things. I maybe like the amber ales to be a little bit sweeter than this, but yeah, this one does get a little bit more kind of grainy the further into the aftertaste that you go. So maybe that's another kind of thing with this beer for me. But it's well crafted. You always get that from Beerbliotek, but you are going to get many beers from Beerbliotek that will blow you away. This one doesn't really do that. So yeah, as I say, I think trying these two beers that I have as my Easter offerings, I think it justifies my position that I don't get so excited about the Easter offerings, in fairness. But yeah, that's it. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I'd be interested to try it on tap and see if it's a little bit sweeter on tap, but otherwise it's a fairly well crafted amber ale, this one, but certainly not the most striking beer from Beerbliotek. We can leave it there. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Beerbliotek. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point very soon. I do have one more beer from them in the fridge, and I'm going to get another one when I go to Systembolaget later in the week. So you will see more Beerbliotek reviews coming up very soon, I'm sure. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Beerbliotek, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow with some more kind of regular beer reviews, not just the Easter ones. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you guys in the next review.